My dear viewers, today I'm bringing you a story that will shake you to your core, a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate revenge that proves sometimes the cruelest wounds come from those we love most. This is the story of Bella Marcus, a 67-year-old woman who gave everything for her daughter, only to be told the most devastating words a mother can hear. So grab your tissues, settle in, and prepare yourself for a journey that will show you just how powerful a mother's love and her fury can be. My name is Bella Marcus, and I'm 67 years old. I've lived through decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and heartbreak, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the words that would come out of my own daughter's mouth on what should have been one of the proudest days of my life. It was a crisp October morning in Manhattan, and I was standing outside the prestigious law firm of Harrison, Blake and Associates, clutching a small bouquet of white roses, Jessica's favorite flowers since she was 7 years old. My hands were shaking, not from the autumn chill, but from pure, overwhelming pride. My daughter, my beautiful, brilliant Jessica, had just been promoted to senior partner at one of New York's most elite law firms. After 22 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and working 3 jobs to put her through Columbia Law School, this moment felt like vindication for every choice I'd made as a single mother. I'd taken the Greyhound bus from our little town in upstate New York, spending my entire Social Security check for the month on this trip because I wouldn't have missed this day for the world. Jessica had called me 3 days prior, her voice bright with excitement. "Mom, you have to come to the celebration party. They're announcing my promotion, and there's going to be press coverage. I want you there when they take the pictures for the legal journals." Those words had sent my heart soaring. After years of feeling like I was slowly becoming irrelevant in my daughter's increasingly sophisticated life, she wanted me there for her moment of triumph. I'd spent 2 days preparing. I'd gone to the discount store and bought the nicest dress I could afford, a navy blue number that made me feel elegant despite its $29.99 price tag. I'd even splurged on professional makeup at the department store counter, letting the young woman behind the counter transform my tired face into something that might pass for distinguished. But as I stood outside that gleaming office building, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as my daughter laughed with her colleagues, something felt wrong. Jessica kept glancing toward the entrance, and every time she did, her smile faltered just a little. My phone buzzed with a text message. From Jessica. "Mom, change of plans. Don't come up yet. I'll text you when it's time." I frowned, reading the message twice. When it's time? The invitation had said 2 p.m., and it was already 2:15. Through the windows, I could see the party was in full swing. I texted back, "Honey, I'm outside. Should I come up now?" The response came back quickly. "No. Wait for my signal." That single word, "no," hit me like a physical blow. But I waited like I always did. Because that's what mothers do. We wait, we hope, and we trust that our children know best. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I watched as photographers moved through the crowd, capturing the celebration. I saw Jessica posing with the other partners, her smile brilliant under the camera flashes. I saw her accepting congratulations from colleagues in expensive suits, their handshakes firm and their laughter genuine. And then I saw him. A tall, distinguished man in his 50s approached Jessica. Even from a distance, I could see the way her face lit up when she saw him, the same way it used to light up when she was little and saw her favorite teacher or got a perfect grade on a test. He kissed her cheek, and she laughed at something he said, touching his arm in a gesture that spoke of intimate familiarity. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. "Mom." Jessica's voice was different now. Strained. Careful. "Yes, honey. Are you ready for me to come up?" There was a long pause. In the background, I could hear the sounds of the party, clinking glasses, sophisticated laughter, the kind of conversations that happen when important people gather in important places. Actually, Mom, there's been a change of plans. My heart started to sink. What kind of change? The thing is, this party is really more of a business event than a family celebration. There are a lot of important clients here, potential partners, you know? It's very professional. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, trying to understand what she was really saying. I understand, honey. I'll be very appropriate. You know I know how to behave. It's not that, Mom. It's just... Another pause. Longer this time. It's just that some of these people are very particular about appearances. Image is everything in this business. Image. The word sat heavy in my chest. What does that mean, Jessica? I could hear her taking a deep breath, as if she were steeling herself for something difficult. It means that I need you to do me a favor. A big favor. Of course, honey. Anything. When you come up, if you come up, I need you to not. I need you to avoid mentioning that you're my mother. The world stopped spinning. Cars continued to move on the street below. People walked past me on the sidewalk, but for me, everything had gone completely still. What did you say? Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be. Just, if anyone asks, you're a family friend. Someone who knew me growing up. Can you do that for me? I stared up at the building, at the windows that revealed my daughter's glittering world, a world that apparently had no room for the woman who'd given her life to create it. Jessica, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, are you ashamed of me? It's not about shame, Mom. It's about business. It's about my career. These people have expectations and I don't meet them. The silence on the other end of the line was answer enough. Mom, please. Just this once. Just for today. Can you please not tell anyone that you're my mom? Those words, don't tell anyone that you're my mom, hit me like a physical blow. They echoed in my ears, bounced around my skull, settled into my chest like shards of glass. I thought about all the nights I'd worked double shifts at the diner to pay her college tuition. I thought about the times I'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so she could have proper meals. I thought about the years I'd worn the same 3 dresses to every important event because every spare dollar went to her textbooks, her bar exam fees, her professional wardrobe. I thought about the pride that had carried me through 2 decades of sacrifice, the pride of being Jessica's mother. And now she was asking me to pretend I wasn't. Mom, are you there? I looked up at the building one more time. Through the windows, I could see Jessica still talking to the distinguished man, still laughing, still shining in her perfect world. I'm here, I said. So you'll do it? You'll come up, but you won't say you're my mother? I closed my eyes, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Something that felt like the death of innocence, the end of illusions, the moment when love and disappointment collide so violently that they create something else entirely. Something dangerous. Yes, Jessica, I said quietly. I'll do exactly what you asked. Thank you, Mom. You're the best. I'll text you when it's okay to come up. She hung up, and I stood there on the sidewalk, holding my phone and my white roses, watching my daughter celebrate her success in a world that didn't include me. But Jessica had made one crucial mistake. She'd assumed that when I agreed to her request, I meant I would quietly disappear into the background, play the part of the invisible family friend, make myself small and forgettable. She was wrong. If Jessica wanted me to not tell anyone I was her mother, then I would give her exactly what she asked for. But I would do it in a way she would never, ever forget. Because sometimes, the most devastating response to cruelty is perfect compliance. I stood on that Manhattan sidewalk for another 10 minutes, my mind racing with possibilities. The white roses in my hand suddenly felt like weapons, and the navy blue dress I'd been so proud of felt like armor. Jessica wanted me to deny our relationship? Fine. I would deny it so thoroughly, so completely, that she would understand exactly what she was asking for. My phone buzzed with her text. "Okay, Mom, you can come up now. Remember what we talked about?" I walked into the building, my steps steady and purposeful. The lobby was all marble and gold, the kind of place designed to intimidate. But I wasn't intimidated anymore. I was focused. The elevator carried me to the 42nd floor, and when the doors opened, I stepped out into a world of crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes, and the soft murmur of expensive conversation. Jessica spotted me immediately. She was still standing with a distinguished man I'd seen from the street, and she approached me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mom," she said quietly, then caught herself. "I mean, Bella. Thank you so much for coming." She was introducing me by my first name to avoid calling me Mom in public. The final nail in the coffin of my maternal identity. "Of course, dear," I said, my voice perfectly pleasant. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. The distinguished man approached, and Jessica's posture straightened. "Richard, I'd like you to meet Bella Marcus. She's someone who's known me for a very long time." Richard extended his hand with a warm smile. "Richard Thornton, senior partner. Any friend of Jessica's is a friend of ours. How do you know our new partner?" This was it. The moment Jessica had been dreading, the moment she'd asked me to lie about the most fundamental relationship in both our lives. I looked at Jessica, saw the fear in her eyes, the desperate plea for me to play along with her charade. And I smiled. "Oh, Richard," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the immediate area. "I'm nobody important. Really. Just someone who used to change Jessica's diapers." Jessica's face went white. "Bella, that's not." "Oh yes," I continued, warming to my theme. "I remember when little Jessica was about 3 years old, and she had this terrible habit of refusing to use the potty. She'd hide behind the couch, and—"
"Bella."
Jessica's voice was sharp with panic. Richard looked confused, glancing between us. "I'm sorry, did you say you changed her diapers?" "Oh my," I said, pressing my hand to my chest in mock surprise. "Did I not mention that? Jessica specifically asked me not to tell anyone that I'm her mother."
"She was very clear about that."
"Don't tell anyone that you're my mom," she said. "So I'm not telling anyone." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's eyebrows shot up to his hairline. A few nearby conversations stopped as people turned to see what was happening. "Your mother?" Richard said slowly. "Well, yes, but Jessica doesn't want anyone to know that. She thinks it might be bad for her image, having a mother who took the bus here from upstate New York and bought her dress at a discount store." Jessica was staring at me with a mixture of horror and disbelief. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Oh, now I'm Mom again?" I asked sweetly. "I thought I was supposed to be just Bella, someone who knew you growing up. Make up your mind, sweetheart." More people were turning to stare now. I could see the photographers perking up, sensing a story. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mrs. Marcus, I think there might be some misunderstanding." "Oh no, no misunderstanding at all," I said cheerfully. Jessica was very clear. She's ashamed of having a mother who worked 3 jobs to put her through law school. She doesn't want her important new colleagues to know that her mother cleaned office buildings at night and waited tables during the day to pay for her Columbia Law School tuition. "Mom, please," Jessica whispered, her face now red with embarrassment and anger. "Please what, honey? Please not tell everyone how you had your first period in 7th grade and cried for 3 hours because you thought you were dying? Or please not mention how you used to practice your closing arguments in front of our bathroom mirror, using a hairbrush as a microphone." A photographer had definitely started paying attention now, and I could see him subtly adjusting his position to get a better shot. "Mrs. Marcus," Richard said, his voice strained with diplomatic politeness, "perhaps we should." Oh, you should definitely know about the time Jessica got food poisoning from bad cafeteria fish in her sophomore year at Columbia, and I drove down to the city at 2 a.m. to take care of her because she was too sick to even call a doctor. Jessica grabbed my arm. Stop. Please, just stop. I looked at her, this beautiful, successful woman who had just asked me to erase myself from her life, and I felt something cold and powerful settle in my chest. Stop telling people that I'm your mother? I asked loudly enough for half the room to hear. But Jessica, you specifically asked me not to tell anyone that I'm your mom. I'm just following your instructions. The room had gone noticeably quieter. Conversations were stopping. People were staring. Richard was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private. Oh no, I said, smiling brightly at him. Jessica wanted this to be public. She wanted me to come to her big celebration and pretend I wasn't the woman who gave birth to her. She wanted me to stand here among all her important friends and deny that I'm the person who sacrificed everything so she could become who she is today. Mrs. Marcus, Richard started. Did you know, I continued conversationally, that Jessica used to be afraid of thunderstorms? Until she was 15 years old, she'd crawl into bed with me every time it stormed. I'd hold her and sing "You Are My Sunshine" until she fell asleep. Tears were streaming down Jessica's face now. Mom, please stop. Oh, now you're calling me mom in public? I thought that was forbidden. The photographer was openly taking pictures now, and I could see other people recording with their phones. You know what the funny thing is? I said, addressing the growing crowd of onlookers. Jessica called me 3 days ago, so excited about this promotion. She said, Mom, you have to come. I want you there when they take the pictures. And silly me, I thought she meant because she was proud to be my daughter. Richard was making frantic gestures to someone across the room, probably trying to get security or PR people to intervene. But it turns out, I continued, she just wanted me here so she could practice her new skill, denying that the woman who raised her exists. It's like a magic trick. Watch Jessica Marcus make her mother disappear. Stop it, Jessica screamed, her professional composure finally cracking completely. Just stop it. You're ruining everything. The room went completely silent. Everyone was staring at us now. I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd loved more than my own life for 34 years, and said quietly, No, sweetheart. You ruined it the moment you asked me to pretend I wasn't your mother. I set the white roses down on the nearest table. Congratulations on your promotion, Jessica. I hope it was worth the price you paid for it. And then I walked toward the elevator, leaving my daughter sobbing in the middle of her perfect party, surrounded by her perfect colleagues, in her perfect world that was now perfectly ruined. The elevator doors closed, and as we descended, I caught my reflection in the polished metal. I looked exactly the same as I had an hour ago, but everything had changed. Jessica had asked me not to tell anyone I was her mother. I had given her exactly what she asked for. And now she would live with the consequences for the rest of her life. The bus ride back to Millbrook was the longest 4 hours of my life. Not because of the uncomfortable seats or the stops in small towns along the Hudson Valley, but because of the silence from my phone. For 34 years, Jessica and I had talked almost every day. When she was in college, she'd call me every night to tell me about her classes, her professors, the boys she was dating. When she started her career, our calls became weekly, then bi-weekly, but they never stopped completely. Now, nothing. I stared out the window at the autumn landscape rushing past and tried to process what I'd done. Part of me, a very small part, wondered if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered the look in Jessica's eyes when she'd asked me to deny our relationship, and I felt that cold, hard thing in my chest solidify even more. She'd been ashamed of me, ashamed of the woman who'd given her everything. Well, now she had what she wanted. A world without her embarrassing mother. By the time I got home to my little two-bedroom house on Maple Street, word had already spread. In a town of 3,000 people, news travels fast, especially when it involves someone who's lived there their whole life. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was waiting on my front porch with a casserole and a concerned expression. "Bella, honey, I saw the news online. Are you okay?" I fumbled with my keys, not trusting my voice. "What news?" She held up her phone, and there it was, a video someone had taken at the party. The headline read, "Corporate lawyer's mother exposes daughter's shame in viral confrontation." The video had been posted on multiple social media platforms. As I watched, the view count was climbing rapidly. 50,000 views. 75,000. 100,000. In the video, I could see myself clearly saying, "Jessica specifically asked me not to tell anyone that I'm her mother."
She was very clear about that.
"Don't tell anyone that you're my mom," she said. The comments were brutal. "Imagine being so successful that you're ashamed of the woman who raised you. This is what happens when people forget where they came from." That poor mother. She looked so dignified even while her daughter was humiliating her. Jessica Marcus should be ashamed of herself. Mrs. Patterson patted my shoulder. "The whole town's talking about it, honey. Everyone's on your side." I nodded absently, still scrolling through the comments. The video was spreading like wildfire, being shared and reshared across the internet. Local news stations were already picking it up. "I made a mistake," I said quietly. "No, you didn't," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. "You stood up for yourself. That girl needed to be reminded who raised her." But I wasn't sure anymore. In the heat of the moment, standing in that glittering law firm surrounded by Jessica's perfect colleagues, giving her exactly what she'd asked for had felt like justice. Now, watching the video spread across the internet, seeing my daughter's career potentially being destroyed by my public humiliation of her, I wondered if I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. My phone rang. For a moment, my heart leaped, thinking it might be Jessica calling to apologize, to explain, to make this right. It was my sister Linda calling from Phoenix. "Bella, what the hell happened in New York?" I sank down onto my couch, suddenly exhausted. She asked me not to tell anyone I was her mother, Linda. At her own PR. Linda was quiet for a moment. "Honey, that video is everywhere. CNN just picked it up. They're calling it the mother-daughter confrontation that's breaking the internet." My stomach dropped. Oh God. "Bella, you need to call Jessica. You need to fix this." "Fix what?" "She's ashamed of me." She made that very clear. "She's still your daughter." "Is she?" Because she seemed pretty intent on erasing that fact. After Linda hung up, I sat in my quiet house, surrounded by photos of Jessica throughout her life. Jessica at 5, missing her front teeth and grinning at the camera. Jessica at graduation from high school valedictorian. Jessica at her Columbia Law School graduation, tears of joy streaming down her face as she hugged me. Had I really lost her forever? Had 34 years of love been destroyed by one moment of public humiliation? But then I remembered her voice on the phone. "Don't tell anyone that you're my mom." And I remembered the shame in her eyes when she introduced me as someone who's known me for a very long time. Maybe I had lost her. But maybe I'd lost her long before today. Maybe today was just the day I finally admitted it to myself. By the next morning, my phone was ringing constantly. Reporters from local newspapers, then regional news stations, then national media outlets. "Mrs. Marcus, this is Janet Wheeler from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show to discuss your viral confrontation with your daughter." "Mrs. Marcus, I'm calling from the Today Show. We're doing a segment on family dynamics in the social media age." "Mrs. Marcus, this is TMZ. Can you comment on reports that your daughter's law firm is conducting an internal review?" I stopped answering the phone, but the internet wouldn't stop. The video had been viewed over 2 million times. It had been turned into memes, analyzed by talk show hosts, and dissected by social media influencers. Hashtag "Don't tell anyone I'm your mom" was trending on Twitter. People were taking sides. Some called me a hero for standing up to my ungrateful daughter. Others called me a vindictive mother who destroyed her own child's career out of spite. The truth, as usual, was somewhere in between. 3 days after the party, Jessica finally called. "Mom." Her voice was small, broken. "Hello, Jessica. I've been fired." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "The firm let me go. They said the negative publicity was damaging their reputation. They said I showed poor judgment in personal matters and that it reflected badly on my ability to represent clients." I closed my eyes, feeling sick. "Jessica, I've lost everything, Mom. My job, my reputation, my career. Other firms won't touch me because of the video. I'm toxic now." The pain in her voice was unbearable. This was my daughter, my little girl, and I had destroyed her life in a moment of anger and hurt. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I never meant." "Yes, you did." Her voice was getting stronger now, fueled by anger. "You meant every word of it. You wanted to humiliate me, and you succeeded." "Jessica, please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you decided to ruin my life because I hurt your feelings." "You didn't hurt my feelings," I said, my own anger flaring. "You asked me to erase myself from your life. You asked me to pretend I wasn't the woman who raised you, who sacrificed everything for you. And you decided the appropriate response was to destroy my career? I gave you exactly what you asked for. No, you gave me a public humiliation that will follow me for the rest of my life." We were both crying now. "Jessica," I said, my voice breaking, "I raised you to be proud of who you are, where you come from. When did I become something to be ashamed of? When you decided to make a scene at the most important day of my career." "The most important day of your career was the day you graduated from law school, and I was right there cheering you on. This was just another day when you decided I wasn't good enough for your new world." The silence stretched between us. Finally, Jessica spoke, her voice cold and distant. "I never want to see you again." "Jessica." "I mean it, Mom. You've destroyed everything I worked for. We're done." She hung up. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone, wondering how love could turn into something so poisonous, so quickly. Outside, photographers had gathered on my street. News vans were parked along Maple Street, and reporters were knocking on my neighbors' doors, asking for comments about the woman who publicly shamed her successful daughter. I'd become a celebrity overnight. The wrong kind of celebrity. Mrs. Patterson knocked on my back door. "Bella, honey, you need to see this." She handed me a newspaper. The headline read, "Small Town Mother's Revenge." A cautionary tale of social media justice. The article painted me as either a vindictive woman who destroyed her daughter's life out of spite, or a working-class hero who'd stood up to elitist snobbery. There was no middle ground. But buried in the article was a quote that made my blood run cold. Sources close to the firm report that Jessica Marcus had already been under review for several months due to concerns about her judgment and interpersonal skills. The viral video may have simply provided the firm with the excuse they were looking for to terminate her employment. Jessica had been in trouble at work before the party. Before my public confrontation. The video might have been the final straw, but it wasn't the only reason she'd been fired. She'd been struggling professionally, and instead of reaching out to me for support, she'd been ashamed to have me witness her potential failure. The phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Marcus?" "This is Dr. Sarah Chin. I'm a family therapist in New York City, and I've been following your story. I think you and your daughter might benefit from mediated conversation." She doesn't want to talk to me. People say a lot of things when they're hurt and angry. Would you be willing to come to New York for a session? I'll reach out to Jessica separately. I looked around my house, at the reporters camping outside, at the photos of Jessica that now felt like relics from a different life. I'll think about it. But even as I said it, I knew the truth. Jessica had made her choice. She'd asked me not to tell anyone I was her mother, and now she truly didn't have a mother anymore. I'd given her exactly what she wanted. The question was, had I given myself what I wanted too? 2 weeks passed. The media attention began to die down, but the damage was done. Jessica's story had become a cautionary tale about family loyalty, social climbing, and the price of success. I tried to return to my normal routine, but normal didn't exist anymore. Every trip to the grocery store resulted in stares and whispers. Some people approached me with sympathy, telling me I'd done the right thing. Others gave me dirty looks, clearly believing I'd ruined my daughter's life out of petty revenge. The truth was, I was beginning to wonder if they were right. Late one evening, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman I didn't recognize, well-dressed, professional, but with red-rimmed eyes and a defeated posture. I opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you? Mrs. Marcus?" I worked with Jessica at the firm. I invited her in, offered her tea, and waited for her to explain why she was standing in my living room at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. "I came to tell you something about Jessica," she said. "Something you deserve to know." My heart clenched. Is she okay? Physically, yes. But Mrs. Marcus. She's been struggling for a lot longer than just since the video. Amanda took a shaky breath. Jessica and I started at the firm the same day 5 years ago. We were both ambitious, both determined to make partner. But somewhere along the way, Jessica changed. Changed how? She became obsessed with fitting in with the senior partners. She started changing her accent, her clothes, even her interests. She began telling people she went to boarding school instead of public school in Millbrook. She said her family was old money from upstate. Each word was like a knife to my heart. She denied her background? More than that. She denied you. Mrs. Marcus, Jessica has been telling people for 3 years that her parents died in a car accident when she was in college. The room spun around me. What? She said she was raised by distant relatives who paid for her education but weren't really family. She made up this whole elaborate story about being an orphan who overcame tragedy through hard work and determination. I couldn't breathe. She told people I was dead? Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I should have said something, but office politics. I thought maybe she had her reasons. I didn't know you were real until I saw the video. You thought I was dead too? Jessica was so convincing. She had this whole tragic backstory worked out. She even had fake photos of herself with family friends who she said raised her. Mrs. Marcus, she's been living this lie for years. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what I was hearing. My daughter hadn't just been ashamed of me at the party. She'd been systematically erasing me from her life for years, telling everyone who mattered to her that I was dead. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Amanda wiped her eyes. Because after the video went viral, some of us started putting the pieces together. We realized she'd been lying about everything. And we realized that you're not the villain in this story. You're the victim. She still lost her job because of what I did. Mrs. Marcus, Jessica was going to lose her job anyway. The partners had been questioning her integrity for months. They'd caught her in several lies about her background during client meetings. The video just gave them the excuse they needed to act. After Amanda left, I sat in my living room for hours, staring at the photos of Jessica. All those years I'd been so proud of her success. She'd been telling people I was dead, not just absent from her life, not just an embarrassment to be hidden away, but dead. I thought about all the times she'd called me, All the conversations we'd had about her work, her colleagues, her life in New York. Had any of it been real? Or had she been compartmentalizing, keeping her real life completely separate from her fake one? The phone rang. Jessica. Mom, I need to see you. Her voice was different, smaller, broken in a way I'd never heard before. I don't think that's a good idea, honey.
Please.
I know you talked to Amanda. I know you know about what I told people about you. So she knew I'd discovered her lies. Jessica. I'm on my way to Millbrook. I'll be there in 3 hours. Please don't leave. Please don't refuse to see me. She hung up before I could respond. I spent those 3 hours pacing my house, trying to prepare myself for a conversation I wasn't sure I wanted to have. How do you talk to someone who's been telling people you're dead? How do you begin to repair a relationship that's been built on such a fundamental lie? At 1 a.m., headlights swept across my front yard. I watched through the window as Jessica got out of her car, walked slowly up my front steps, and knocked on the door with trembling hands. When I opened it, I barely recognized her. She'd lost weight, her hair was unkempt, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Hi, Mom. Jessica. We stood there for a moment, two women who'd loved each other for 34 years and now had no idea how to talk to each other. Can I come in? I stepped aside, and she walked into the living room where she'd grown up, where we'd had so many conversations about her dreams and ambitions and plans for the future. She sat on the couch and immediately started crying.
I'm so sorry, she sobbed.
I'm so sorry. I sat across from her, keeping my distance. For which part, Jessica? For being ashamed of me at the party, or for telling people I was dead for 3 years? She flinched. All of it. Everything. I don't know how I became this person. I do, I said quietly. You became this person by making choices. Every day for 3 years, you chose to lie about who I was, who you were, where you came from. It started small, she said desperately. Just little lies to fit in. And then it got bigger and bigger until I was trapped in this story I couldn't take back. So, you decided the solution was to make it true. To actually erase me from your life. I never wanted to erase you. I love you. You told people I was dead, Jessica.
Dead.
Do you understand what that means? Do you understand how that feels? She was crying harder now. I know. I know it was horrible. I know it was unforgivable. Then why did you do it? Because I was weak, she whispered. Because I was scared. Because I thought if people knew the truth about my background, they wouldn't take me seriously. The truth about your background is that your mother loved you enough to sacrifice everything for your success. What exactly is shameful about that? Nothing, she said. There's nothing shameful about you. There never was. I was so desperate to fit in with people who I thought were better than me. Better than us.
Yes.
Better than us. And I was wrong. I looked at my daughter, this broken woman who'd traded her integrity and her family for acceptance from people who'd fired her the moment she became inconvenient. Jessica, what do you want from me? I want my mother back, she said. I want to go back to before I became this person who could hurt you so badly. I stared at her, this woman I'd raised, who'd just confessed to 3 years of telling people I was dead, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, crack. Like ice beginning to thaw. You can't go back, Jessica. Neither of us can. But we can go forward, she said desperately. We can try to fix this. Can we? Because I don't know who you are anymore. The daughter I raised would never have told people her mother was dead. The daughter I raised would never have been ashamed of working-class roots. The daughter I raised had integrity. Jessica flinched as if I'd slapped her. I'm still that person. Underneath all the lies and the mistakes, I'm still your daughter. Are you? Because my daughter called me 3 days ago and told me she never wanted to see me again. I was angry and hurt, and you blamed me for destroying your career when you'd already destroyed it yourself with years of lies. The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear the wind rustling through the maple trees that gave our street its name. Inside, two women who'd loved each other desperately tried to figure out if love was enough to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. "Mom," Jessica said finally, "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I've done terrible things. But please, please don't give up on me completely." I looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the exhaustion and the shame, I could still see traces of the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who'd practiced her debate speeches in front of the mirror. The young woman who'd called me every night from college just to hear my voice. But I could also see the woman who'd systematically erased me from her life, who'd been ashamed to claim me as her mother, who'd chosen a lie over the truth about where she came from. "Jessica, I need you to understand something. When you asked me not to tell anyone I was your mother, it wasn't just hurtful. It was devastating. It made me question every sacrifice I'd ever made for you. I never wanted you to feel that way. But I did feel that way. And then I found out it was even worse than I thought. You hadn't just been hiding me, you'd been actively denying my existence." Jessica nodded, unable to meet my eyes. "I know. So here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady and calm. "You're going to leave. You're going to go back to New York, and you're going to figure out who you really are and what you really want. Not what you think will impress other people, but what's true for you." "Mom, I'm not finished."
You're going to stop lying.
"About everything. About your background, about your family, about who you are. You're going to learn to be proud of where you came from, or you're going to stay away from where you came from." "What does that mean?" "It means I won't be your mother in secret anymore. I won't be the family you hide from your professional life and then call when you need emotional support. Either I'm your mother completely, publicly, proudly, or I'm not your mother at all." Jessica's face crumpled. "You're cutting me off? I'm giving you a choice. The same choice you gave me, actually. You can have me in your life as your mother, fully, openly, without shame. Or you can have the life you've built on lies. But you can't have both." "That's not fair. Isn't it? You asked me to erase myself from your life. Now I'm telling you that you can either embrace me or lose me, but you can't have it both ways anymore." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the weight of this conversation. "You need to go now, Jessica." "Mom, please."
Go.
"Take some time to think about what you really want. And when you've figured it out, really figured it out, then we can talk again." She stood slowly, wiping her tears. "How will I know when I'm ready?" "You'll know you're ready when you can call me on the phone and say, 'Hi, this is Jessica Marcus, and Bella Marcus is my mother, and I'm proud of that fact.' And if I can't do that?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved more than my own life, who'd broken my heart so completely that I wasn't sure it could ever be fully repaired. "Then you'll have gotten exactly what you asked for that day in New York. A life without me in it." Jessica left that night, and I didn't hear from her again for 6 months. 6 months of silence. 6 months of wondering if I'd been too harsh, too unforgiving. 6 months of questioning whether I'd thrown away my relationship with my only child out of pride and hurt feelings. But I stuck to my decision, because the truth was, Jessica needed to figure out who she was without me propping her up, making excuses for her, or accepting crumbs of affection while she lived a lie. The media attention gradually died down. Other stories took over the news cycle. Other families became the subject of viral videos and social media outrage. My 15 minutes of fame, or infamy, faded into internet history. But the impact lingered. I received hundreds of emails from other parents dealing with children who'd grown ashamed of their backgrounds. Some supported what I'd done, calling it tough love. Others criticized me for destroying my daughter's career over hurt feelings. I stopped reading them after a while. The only opinion that mattered was my own, and I was still working through what I thought about everything that had happened. Mrs. Patterson brought me a newspaper clipping one day. A small item buried in the business section. Local woman starts nonprofit for working-class families. It was about Jessica. She'd moved back to upstate New York, not to Millbrook, but to Albany, and had started an organization that provided legal services to low-income families who couldn't afford representation. She was using her real background now, the article said, talking openly about growing up working class, about her mother, who'd worked multiple jobs. I cut out the article and put it on my refrigerator next to photos of Jessica from when she was little. It was progress, I told myself. She was finding her way back to who she really was. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. 3 more months passed. Then, on a Tuesday morning in April, my phone rang. Mrs. Marcus? This is Jennifer Walsh from the Albany Times-Union. I'm doing a feature story on local nonprofits, and I interviewed your daughter Jessica yesterday. My heart started pounding. Oh. She spoke very highly of you. She said you were the inspiration for her organization, that watching you work multiple jobs to support her taught her the value of helping people who don't have advantages. That's nice to hear. She also said something else. She said she owed you an apology that she hadn't been brave enough to give yet, but that she was working on becoming the kind of person who deserved your forgiveness. After the reporter hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and pride and the complicated ways that love manifests between parents and children. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 9 months. I called Jessica. She answered on the first ring. Mom? I could hear her start to cry. I've missed you so much. I've missed you too. I saw the article about your nonprofit. You did. I'm proud of you, Jessica. Not because you're successful, but because you're finally being honest about who you are. I'm trying to be. It's harder than I thought it would be, unlearning all those lies I told myself. The truth usually is harder. That's why so many people choose lies instead.
We talked for 2 hours that night.
About her work, about the families she was helping, about the slow process of rebuilding her sense of self after years of pretending to be someone else. She didn't ask to see me. She didn't ask for my forgiveness. She just talked to me like I was her mother. Openly, honestly, without shame. It was a start. Over the next few months, Jessica and I talked regularly. Not every day like we used to, but often enough that I began to feel like I knew who she was again. She told me about the client who reminded her of me, a single mother working 2 jobs who needed help with a custody dispute. She told me about the board members of her nonprofit who came from backgrounds similar to ours, who understood that being working class wasn't something to be ashamed of. She told me about the therapy she'd started, working through the shame and insecurity that had led her to construct such elaborate lies about her life. Most importantly, she started including me in her real life again. She mentioned me by name in interviews. She talked about my influence on her decision to start the nonprofit. She posted a photo of us together from her law school graduation on the organization's website, with a caption that read, "My mother, Bella Marcus, who showed me that hard work and love are the most valuable things you can give a child." But she still didn't ask to see me in person. I understood why. We both needed to be sure that the foundation was solid before we tried to rebuild what we'd lost. Too much damage had been done to rush back into the way things used to be. Then, in December, almost exactly a year after the confrontation that had changed everything, Jessica called with a different kind of request. Mom, I have something to ask you, and I want you to feel completely free to say no. What is it? The nonprofit is having a fundraising gala next month. We're honoring people who've made a difference in the lives of working families. And I'd like to honor you. My breath caught. Me? You represent everything this organization stands for. You're a single mother who sacrificed everything for her child's education. You worked multiple jobs, never complained, never gave up. You deserve recognition for that. Jessica, I know you don't need recognition, but I need to give it to you.
Publicly.
In front of everyone who matters to me now. I need to stand up and tell them who my mother is and how proud I am to be your daughter. I was quiet for a long moment, processing what she was asking. Would I have to give a speech? Only if you want to.
But Mom.
I'd like to introduce you as my mother, as the woman who raised me, as the person I'm most proud to know. It was the conversation we should have had a year ago, before the lies and the shame and the public humiliation had torn us apart. Okay, I said. I'll do it. The gala was held at a hotel in Albany. Nothing as fancy as the law firm where everything had gone wrong, but elegant enough that I felt I should make an effort. I bought a new dress. Not from a discount store this time, but from a real department store. I had my hair done professionally. I even splurged on new shoes. But more than the external preparations, I spent time preparing emotionally. This would be the first time Jessica and I appeared in public together since the viral video. People would be watching, waiting to see if we'd reconciled, or if there was still tension between us. I decided I didn't care what people thought. This night was about my daughter finding the courage to claim me publicly, and about me having the grace to let her do it. When I arrived at the hotel, Jessica was waiting in the lobby. She looked beautiful, not in the sharp, intimidating way she'd looked at the law firm, but in a softer, more genuine way. She was wearing a simple black dress and her grandmother's pearls, the ones I'd given her when she graduated from college. "Hi, Mom," she said, and her voice was steady and warm. She hugged me then, a real hug, not the stiff, obligatory embrace from the law firm. And I hugged her back, feeling some of the ice around my heart finally begin to melt. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "A little. Are you?" "Terrified," she admitted, but in a good way. The ballroom was filled with about 200 people, donors, board members, clients of the nonprofit, local politicians who supported their work. As we entered together, I could see people turning to look at us, some recognizing us from the viral video, others simply curious about the evening's honorees. Jessica guided me to a table near the front, where I was seated with other honorees and their families. She squeezed my hand before going to the head table where the speakers would sit. During dinner, I watched my daughter work the room. She moved from table to table, thanking donors, talking with clients, introducing board members to potential supporters. But this time, her interactions felt genuine. She wasn't performing or trying to be someone she wasn't. She was just being Jessica, intelligent, passionate, committed to her work. When it came time for the awards presentation, Jessica took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight to support families who are working hard to build better lives for their children." She talked about the mission of the nonprofit, about the clients they'd helped, about the importance of providing legal services to people who couldn't afford them. Then she said, "Tonight we're honoring several people who embody the values our organization represents. But I want to start with someone who embodies those values for me personally." I felt my heart start to race. My mother, Bella Marcus, raised me as a single parent in Millbrook, New York. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college and law school. She cleaned office buildings at night, waited tables during the day, and sold insurance on weekends. She never complained, never made me feel guilty for the sacrifices she was making, never let me doubt that I could achieve anything I set my mind to. The room was completely quiet. Some of you may remember a viral video from last year where my mother and I had a very public disagreement at my former workplace. That video showed a moment when I failed to live up to the values she taught me, when I was ashamed of the very background that had made me who I was. I could see people shifting in their seats, paying closer attention. I'm not proud of that moment. I'm not proud of the choices I made that led up to it, but I'm grateful for it now because it forced me to examine who I'd become and to find my way back to who I really am. Jessica looked directly at me. Mom, would you please come up here? I stood on shaky legs and walked to the front of the room. Jessica handed me the microphone, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I looked out at the crowd, at all these people who were working to help families like the one Jessica and I had been, and I found my voice. A year ago, I said, my daughter asked me not to tell anyone that I was her mother. It was one of the most painful moments of my life. I could hear murmurs from the audience. But tonight, she's asked me to stand up in front of all of you and be proud of that fact. And I am proud. I'm proud to be Jessica's mother. I'm proud of the work she's doing now. And I'm proud that she found her way back to the values I tried to teach her. I handed the microphone back to Jessica. I love you, sweetheart, I said quietly. I love you too, Mom, she said, and this time when she called me Mom in public, it wasn't an accident or a slip of the tongue. It was a choice. The audience erupted in applause. People were standing, some were crying, and I realized that our story had become something larger than just a mother and daughter working through their problems. We'd become a symbol of redemption, of the possibility that even the deepest wounds between family members could heal. After the event, Jessica and I walked to her car together.
Thank you, she said.
For not giving up on me. For giving me the chance to become someone worthy of being your daughter again. You were always worthy, Jessica. You just forgot it for a while. I know. And I'm sorry it took me so long to remember. We stood there in the hotel parking lot, two women who'd hurt each other deeply and found their way back to love. What happens now? I asked. Now we go forward. Not back to the way things were, but forward to something better. I nodded. I'd like that. As I drove home to Millbrook that night, I thought about the year that had passed since that devastating day in New York. We'd both lost things. Jessica had lost her job and her fabricated identity. I had lost my illusions about our relationship. But we'd also found things. Jessica had found her authentic self and meaningful work. I had found my own strength and the knowledge that love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Most importantly, we'd found each other again. 6 months later, I was sitting in my garden when the phone rang. It was Jessica, calling with news that would complete our journey back to each other. Mom, I have something to tell you. What is it, sweetheart? I've been offered a job. A really good job. My heart sank a little. After everything we'd been through, was she going to leave Albany and go back to the corporate world that had caused so much trouble between us? Tell me about it, I said carefully. It's with the State Attorney General's office. They want me to head up a new division focused on consumer protection for low-income families. It's exactly the kind of work I've been doing with a nonprofit, but with more resources and a bigger platform. I felt relieved. This wasn't a step backward into the world of corporate law. This was a step forward into work that aligned with her values. That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of you. There's more, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. The job comes with a requirement. They want me to do some public speaking about my background, about understanding the needs of working families. They specifically mentioned that my personal story, growing up working class, having a mother who worked multiple jobs, makes me uniquely qualified for this position. So they want you because of your background, not in spite of it.
Exactly.
They want me to talk about you, Mom. About what you taught me, about how your example shaped my understanding of what families need from the legal system. It was perfect. After years of hiding her background and being ashamed of where she came from, Jessica had found a career path that celebrated and utilized her authentic story. I'm going to take the job, she said. And I want to ask you something.
What?
Would you come to my swearing-in ceremony? I know it's not as big a deal as a law firm partnership, but it means more to me than any other professional milestone I've ever reached. Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it. And Mom? When they asked me to say a few words about my background and my inspiration for this work, I'm going to talk about you. Not as someone who knew me growing up, but as my mother, the woman who raised me, the person who taught me everything important I know about justice and fairness, and standing up for people who don't have advantages. Tears filled my eyes. I'd be honored. The ceremony was held in the state capitol building in Albany. It was smaller than the law firm party, but infinitely more meaningful. Jessica's colleagues from the nonprofit were there, along with some of the clients she'd helped, board members who'd become friends, and local officials who supported her work. When Jessica was sworn in, I watched from the front row as she raised her right hand and pledged to serve the people of New York with integrity and dedication. She looked confident and professional, but also relaxed in a way she'd never looked during her corporate law years. After the ceremony, there was a small reception. Jessica mingled with the crowd, but this time she kept finding her way back to me, including me in conversations, introducing me to her new colleagues. "This is my mother, Bella Marcus," she said over and over again. "She's the reason I understand the importance of this work." Finally, the time came for remarks. Jessica took the microphone and looked out at the assembled crowd. "Thank you all for being here today. This position means a great deal to me, not just professionally, but personally." She found me in the crowd and smiled. "I grew up in Millbrook, New York, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to support us. My mother cleaned office buildings at night, so I could have cleaned clothes for school during the day. She waited tables so I could afford textbooks. She sold insurance on weekends so I could pay for law school applications." The room was completely quiet, everyone listening intently. For a while, I was ashamed of that background. I thought it made me less qualified, less worthy of success. I even went so far as to deny my roots, to pretend I came from a different kind of family. I could see some people in the audience exchanging glances. Clearly, some of them had heard about our viral confrontation. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Because my background isn't something to be ashamed of, it's my greatest strength. The fact that my mother worked so hard to give me opportunities means I understand, in a very personal way, what families are going through when they need legal help. She paused, looking directly at me. The fact that my mother never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself and on her, taught me that everyone deserves someone fighting for them. That's what this office is going to do, fight for people who need someone in their corner. The applause was warm and sustained. People were nodding, clearly moved by Jessica's honesty about her journey. So I want to end by saying something publicly that I should have said a long time ago. Mom, thank you. Thank you for everything you sacrificed for me. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I disappointed you. And thank you for teaching me that where you come from isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to be proud of. She gestured for me to join her at the front of the room. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Bella Marcus. She's my mother, she's my hero, and she's the reason I'm standing here today." I walked to the front of the room and hugged my daughter as the crowd applauded. This time, when cameras flashed, they were capturing a moment of reconciliation and pride, not confrontation and shame. "I love you, sweetheart," I whispered in her ear. "I love you too, Mom, and I'm proud to be your daughter." Later that evening, Jessica and I had dinner together at a small restaurant in Albany. It was the first time we'd shared a meal alone since that terrible day at the law firm. "How do you feel?" I asked her. "Happy," she said simply. "For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing." "And you're not worried about what your new colleagues think of your background?" "Why would I be? My background is what qualifies me for this job. These people hired me because of where I come from, not in spite of it." I smiled, remembering the young woman who'd been so desperate to hide her working-class roots that she'd told people I was dead. You've come a long way. We both have. Mom, I need you to know something. What? That day at the law firm, when you told everyone exactly what I'd asked you not to tell them, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because you seemed pretty upset about it at the time. I was devastated. But I needed to be devastated. I needed to hit rock bottom before I could figure out who I really wanted to be. So, you're not angry anymore about what I did? Jessica thought about it for a moment. You gave me exactly what I asked for, and it forced me to confront how awful what I was asking really was. If you'd just quietly gone along with it, I might never have realized how far I'd strayed from my values.
I was so angry that day.
So hurt. You had every right to be. I was asking you to erase yourself from my life, to pretend you didn't exist. It was unforgivable. But I did forgive you. Why? I looked at my daughter, this woman who'd broken my heart, and then slowly, carefully put it back together again. Because you found your way back to being the person I raised you to be. Because you stopped running from who you are and started embracing it. Because you remembered that love isn't something to be ashamed of. Jessica reached across the table and took my hand. I promise you, Mom, I will never again ask you to hide who you are or what you mean to me. You're my mother, and I'm proud of that fact, and anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. I laughed. Language, Jessica. Sorry, Mom, but I mean it. I know you do, sweetheart, and that's enough for me. As we sat there in that little restaurant, I thought about the journey we'd taken. From love to betrayal to confrontation to healing to renewal. It hadn't been easy or pretty or simple, but it had been real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. 2 years later, I was getting ready for Jessica's wedding. Yes, wedding. She'd met someone, a public defender named Michael, who understood her commitment to serving working families because he shared it. Someone who thought her background was an asset, not a liability. Someone who wanted to meet me the second week they were dating because he couldn't imagine being with someone whose family he didn't know. The wedding was going to be small, held in the garden behind my house in Millbrook. Jessica had wanted something intimate and authentic, not the big, showy affair she might have planned during her corporate law days. As I put on my mother of the bride dress, a beautiful blue number that Jessica had picked out and insisted on paying for, I thought about how different this day was from what I'd imagined during those dark months after our confrontation. There had been a time when I'd thought I might never see my daughter again, let alone walk her down the aisle, her request, since she'd never had a father to do it. There had been a time when I'd wondered if the love between us had been permanently damaged by lies and shame and public humiliation. But here we were, 2 years later, closer than we'd ever been. Not because we'd forgotten what had happened, but because we'd worked through it honestly and completely. My phone rang as I was putting on my earrings. Mom, are you ready? Almost, sweetheart. How are you feeling?
Perfect.
Absolutely perfect. Well, maybe a few, but good nerves. Excited nerves. I could hear the happiness in her voice, the confidence that came from knowing exactly who she was and what she wanted. Mom, yes. Thank you. For what now? For not giving up on me. For fighting for us even when I didn't want to fight for us myself. You don't have to thank me for loving you, Jessica. That's just what mothers do.
No, it's not.
Some mothers would have let me go, would have decided I wasn't worth the fight. You didn't. You're my daughter. You'll always be worth the fight. After we hung up, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, looking at the woman who'd been through so much in the past few years. I looked older, maybe, but also somehow stronger. More sure of myself. I'd learned that love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. I'd learned that sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything in order to save what really matters. I'd learned that the people who love you shouldn't ask you to make yourself smaller. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is give someone exactly what they ask for, even when it's not what they really want. Downstairs, I could hear the sounds of wedding preparations. Jessica's friends from the Attorney General's office were setting up chairs in the garden. Michael's family was arranging flowers. Mrs. Patterson was directing traffic with the efficiency of a military general. It was exactly the kind of wedding that celebrated who Jessica really was, not who she'd tried to pretend to be. An hour later, I stood in my garden, holding my daughter's arm as we prepared to walk down the aisle together. She looked radiant in her simple white dress, her grandmother's pearls, and a smile that was completely genuine. "Ready?" I asked.
Ready, she said.
As we walked down the aisle together, I saw the faces of the people who mattered to us now. Jessica's colleagues who respected her authenticity. Michael's family, who'd welcomed her warmly. Neighbors from Millbrook, who'd watched her grow up. Clients from the nonprofit who'd seen her fight for their families. People who loved us for who we really were, not who we pretended to be. When we reached the front, Jessica hugged me tightly. "I love you, Mom," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I love you too, sweetheart." As I took my seat and watched my daughter marry a man who cherished her completely, I thought about the viral video that had started this whole journey. In that video, a hurt and angry mother had given her daughter exactly what she'd asked for. But this moment of pure joy and authenticity and love, this was what that confrontation had really been about. Not revenge, not humiliation, but truth. The truth that love isn't something to be ashamed of. The truth that where you come from isn't something to hide. The truth that the people who matter will love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. And the truth that sometimes the most painful moments in our lives lead us to the most beautiful ones. As Jessica and Michael exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other completely, I smiled through my tears. My daughter had asked me not to tell anyone I was her mother. Now she was telling everyone herself, and that made all the difference in the world. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey of heartbreak, growth, and redemption. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to remember that love sometimes requires us to fight for what's right, even when it's painful. Remember, you should never have to hide who you are for someone else's comfort, and the people who truly love you will celebrate your authentic self. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.